Hello. My name is Madeline McNeill, and I am a body philosopher. I focus on the core muscles as the landscape for exploring philosophical questions. And once again, I am happy to be with my friend Amanda Maule. And if you would like to introduce yourself.
I'm Amanda Maule. I am a Master of Fine Arts in creative writing with an emphasis in poetry, and didn't defend Master of Arts in humor theory, essentially. It's got way too many syllables. I edited Madeline's book and helped her with that. Is There a Soul? Basically, a Socratic dialogue form, engaging the very genesis of this theory, kind of the beginnings. Yeah.
We have done 2 episodes already, and I'm often digesting those episodes after we have them, and then thinking about different ways that I could have said things or how I could have elaborated on something. And so that's where I'm starting today, because we were talking last time about laughter as part of humor, and we're engaging each other about what is laughter, like what is the process of a joke, how do we move from this suspension into this bah ha 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 thing. And I mentioned last time that I think laughter is shaking, and I still agree with that, but I realized that that really isn't the process. It didn't get into enough detail about what actually is happening to move through that process of suspension into laughing, and so I wanted to try and articulate that a little bit better. You were saying, I remember, that there's a lot of suspense before the joke.
Yeah, I hypothesized that perhaps it is like the no pose, this like suspension of breath is the penultimate thing that happens right before laughter. That it has to be no until, oh God, yes, woo, woo.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that there's also, you said also that there's an element of surprise, and then there's an element of making the audience experience something different than what they're expecting. So there's a surprise, but then there's also a different kind of mental exercise, I think, that happens because why are they surprised? Because you said something different than what they were expecting, or they didn't expect anything at all. They were wondering how the hell you're going to put these different elements together. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna try to just map it a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think a lot of times when there's just this huge, boisterous exhalation of bah, I was thinking that people, it's kind of like you're crouching, like a cat's like ready to pounce. Because you were saying before that the audience wants to be ahead of the comedian. They want to deliver the punchline. They want to get it before everybody else gets it. And so it's like this postural crouching where you're like, okay, I'm about ready to go and get it, or I'm Jeopardy, and I'm ready to like hit the button, and it's this full body experience that's going on. So there's a lot of contraction, I think, in the pelvis, but I'm thinking more in the pelvis, like where that strength would come from to leap off your
real
chair.
Low.
Yeah, really low, in the hips, where a lot of in sports, people are often working on the hips to get the swing or to get the momentum that you need in order to throw or hit or
it's all in the hips.
It's all in the hips.
Like the stupid golf thing or whatever.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. Well, in softball, as I played softball, it's like the widest part of your body, whoever you are, can generate the most torque, the most power. So if I'm pitching, I have to, my release point for women pitch, and your release point is way down by your hip because that's the thickest part of you, and that when you snap that close, it's like having, when all the ice skaters get in their line, it's like having like a longer line. Dudes are thicker up here, right? And so they generate their power through their shoulders and break their elbows all to bits. You know, they try to throw their elbow right off their arm. With the ball, go! And that's where that power comes from. Like, whatever you are the thickest, that's where your power comes from.
I love it.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense, but I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I think relating to if people sitting in their seats but I think even if you're sitting in your seats, you're engaged in some way, and that suspension, I think, is a suspension of breath, but I also think when you were talking about how they want to leap at achieving this answer, that there's this contraction and this coiling that happens.
Okay,
It's kind of like they're ready to pounce on it. And so I was wondering if that, I'm hypothesizing, if that is part of the momentum, then that will trigger this huge, like, because you're just coiled, and then what happens is you're leading them up, they're coiling, they expect something or they don't know how it's going to all come together, you deliver some kind of sensory experience that is what they're not expecting. It surprises them, which makes the person inhale. It's like this, wide mouth, opened eye, but then here there's a expansion of the ribs, intercostals, expansion of the entire abdominal area, but there's also still this coiled momentum or potential here.
Okay.
So it's like potential, surprise, a different kind of sensory experience. I don't know what I don't know. What it is. What is happening here? Is you deliver some kind of different way of thinking about things, and you're just
yeah.
Something like that is what I'm all thinking about.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and I'm curious about, because like I'm trying to think, because I've been watching all this comedy to try to write comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or watching all this stand-up. I should like be more specific, right? I'm watching all this stand-up to try to write more stand-up specifically, which is so hard. So hard. And I'm watching people laugh, and then we got a whole bunch of kinds of laughs. We got the like, oh, these people who are going like this, sort of like the rocking into it, sort of like, oh, the shaking of the head, you're down here, and like Tosh.0 kind of jokes where it's like, oh god, this is so politically, what the fuck is he just saying? And then you got the like, this kind of like the throwing the head back and laughing up into the sky sort of thing. So it's like really interesting because there's these, I was thinking about it while you were talking, like these two really seemingly different poses, right? Because like kind of contraction here, kind of more of like what we would associate maybe with anger, right? Kind of the same, some of the same elements of the overall posture here. And then here, I don't know what posture, that's getting closer to the right?
Yeah.
So there's these such different things, and I'm trying to listen, trying to like listen to myself laugh when I was listening to Tom Segura last night, because I'm just sitting, not paying attention to anything, just sitting, breathe in, and it's, I think that surprise moment is the kind of like really minuscule like milliseconds of the suppression of breath, the suspension of breath. So it seems to me like when I'm listening to humor and I'm thinking back to last night, 2 in the morning or whatever, I'm just breathing normal, and it might get a little bit shorter in breath, and then once I actually hear the unexpected and recognize the truth in that statement as I put the whole thing together, that's when I have that little suspension. And then then it goes. And I think what you're describing is a really robust sense of all the laughs ever. Does that make sense? Because otherwise I think it would be hard for anybody just sitting at home to try to like think about it that way. Right? And it'd be really hard to map that while you're laughing. Do you know what I mean? Because it's two different things happening to you at once. It's the observer's complex, if you will, in like psychology. Just because you know you're being watched, it changes your perspective on how you behave. Or how you should behave, or like what it means to be behaving.
It's true. I take it for granted, I think, a little bit that I can quickly analyze the postural movement, all of the contraction and sensation and detail, because I've been doing it for a long time, and it's been part of my technique learning singing for 15 years.
Yeah.
So so it's a long time. It takes a little while.
For sure.
So I think it's worth the training, though, to investigate these kinds of things. So it just takes practice. I'm kind of saying this to the camera. It takes practice. It's really fun. Yeah. I liked when you said before that there's this kind of laughter when the person's like down here, and then this up here. And I was wondering a little bit more about this one. Do you think that this one is more of a contraction, like, or were you thinking it was more of a submission, or kind of a limpness, like?
I think a lot of laughter, the shaking we were talking about, a lot of laughter happens kind of like behind the sternum, right? Like right where the diaphragm like hits here. So I think a lot of it is like right in here, because when I laugh, it's like I like this here more than wugga down there. Woo. Partially because I'm a smoker and I don't know how to have lungs anyway, right? So for me, I feel laughter happening where it's like I'm sitting like this, and it's like this upper part of me that kind of like flexibility in my shoulder blades, kind of in like here, and that kind of does here, and it kind of like ding 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 like bends back and forth almost. It seems to me, it almost feels that way. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So like I have to do, I don't know, maybe, whatever, now I'm all sweaty. So yeah, for me it's, as loud as my freaking laugh is, man. Oh. No, I can't see. But for me it feels up here. So it might come to a point where like the extremity of the laughter, like whatever, where it needs to kind of, instead of being up here, it needs to kind of go down here a little bit. Where it's like your body, like you say all the time, body has a need to kind of move, and it's been in stasis for too long. It'll reach out for its own sense of flexibility. So here it might be like, well, that felt nice. Well, let's move that down here, because like here I feel like that. Yeah. So that so that wiggles all over the place in here. And so it's kind of like the different. You know, you get it like you do these massages. The cool finger massage, whatever, and like you just have to kind of move it down, right? And it's kind of that vibrating, because laughing, like, whatever your oscillation is when you laugh, it kind of vibrates all over, right? And you can feel that like vibrate, like you said before. You can't reach in under the diaphragm and massage the diaphragm. It doesn't happen. You have to use breathing to massage your inner core stuff, right? And so this shaking is that massage, and here. Like, this is the easy one to do, my head's still up and whatever, and then cause this is the knee slapper, right? Cause you have to come down and be like, oh God, it's like, and it's not just going like ha 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 ha, it has to go, ha ha ha. Does that make sense?
I think
it's part of this one, it's part of like, you're about to do the knee slapper thing.
I was thinking, when you go down, there's a relaxation of the low back, which feels really good.
Yeah.
And that's different than this, where the back is really, it seems like it's more engaged.
Well, here it gets all googly wobbly. Like when you do this one, your belly feels funny.
Yeah. And this one I feel if I do this, it means that I am at the end of my energy. It's worn me out. Like the joke has worn me out.
Then you got to gas.
Yeah, it's like at the end.
The grandpa week left.
Yeah.
We're just looking. If you took away the sound, we'd look crazy. What are they doing? Well, we're feeling our bodies, duh.
That was laughing.
It was laughing. It was laughing all over the place.
That was the laugh analysis.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's a good and we could talk about it more, or we could move on to art things, another topic if you want.
Sure.
Did you have any more laughing insights?
Well, it's curious to me, like all the kind of the things that come along with laughter, right? We got like you have your kind of laughter, and then there's like these different gradients of laughter, and like your little giggles, your snickers, your heads, and then your just guffaws and like whatever, and then you tip right over the edge. Whoa! And then you're like crying, you can't see anymore, everything hurts, your face hurts, this hurts, your brother hurts over there, your lamps hurt, this lamp is in pain, oh, sorry lamp. And it's like, you just right over there, and all the other physiological responses, like, don't know, just leak it out everywhere, pee your pants, cry, I don't know, go. Fart a couple times. I don't know if I've ever really farted loud when I was laughing, but I'm just guessing.
I've almost peed, or I think I've let some drops go by.
Yeah, but I used to play tennis. Anytime I play tennis with my brother, he does like all this crazy shit, and then I eventually pee my pants, so now I can never go play tennis with him ever again. Because it happens every time. It sucks. He's not athletic, and he just like cocks out of this stupid. I fucking hate this. Why? He just does stupid, weird stuff the entire time. And then I always end up peeing my pants because I can't help it. Because it seems like laughter is this really cool thing where like you enjoy it, and it feels good, and it's got all these kind of stretches and these vibrations and massages, and then you come to a point where you just can't handle it anymore. Your body just totally freaks out.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Not that I want all my audiences to start peeing their pants, because then suddenly I've got to like put the pads down and like have diapers issued to the entire audience, and tickets go up $10 or whatever.
They're under their seat.
Yeah.
It's a flotation device.
And it's just interesting to me that huge spectrum, and then that tipping point of laughter. That I don't know other expressions of the body, especially like really kind of engaged expressions of the core, that suddenly you just get to a certain point and then you just start crying, I don't know, pee, I don't know, like your body just doesn't know what to do anymore, I guess, because it just can't. It's like almost like you got to get out of it. And there was one guy recorded in history who died of laughter, and it was because he was watching Monty Python. He was already in the hospital, so I mean, like, he wasn't doing well.
Okay.
And he was like watching Monty Python, and he just could not stop laughing. And so it's like maybe all these responses are basically going, dude, like you might die. Like you're never gonna get a proper amount of oxygen to keep going. You're gonna get all lightheaded and crap or whatever it is. I don't know what it is because I haven't been there. I've just peed myself. And then I just go, oh, and then it shocks you. I'm like, this is something people do before they die. Like, you know, you go unconscious, you pee yourself, and like all your kind of mechanisms just don't work the way you're supposed to. So it might be this kind of survival tactic. Like that expression, like after that tipping point of laughter, because you get the face hurts and the gut hurts, and that happens fairly often, right? But that tipping point is interesting to me because it goes like, stop it before you die, or whatever. Which is interesting. That something I really want people to do all the time can get that close to that. And it's like, I think for me, I don't know if I can think of any other expression that you have with a different artist that's so robust. So if we want to kind of help a transition into art, let's do that. But like if you engage art, so here's me engaging this painting. And I might have like I might get goosebumps, you know, like a physiological response, might get goosebumps, might have all these memories or whatever, and kind of this internal thing. My body isn't shaking, you know, so that's interesting. The art of humor is soliciting this really, really energetic and active response from its audience members. That's its goal. In other arts, the goals of how the audience shows that I see what you're doing, I see that it's a good version of what you're doing, I see that it's good singing, I hear that it's good singing, I see that it's good painting, I know that it's good art, that response, that acknowledgement that you get from the audience is so much more subdued, I think, for other arts.
I think...
Or it's not like you know what I mean? Nobody else is just shaking on the regular.
Yeah, well, music
Oh, here you go, see, bring it in.
We got, oh god, comedian, the musician. I'm like, oh yeah.
My heart's cooler than yours. My heart's cooler than yours.
It's a different kind of shaking, I think, when you have.
I just go like, is it? Sorry.
You're dancing.
Oh yeah. Duh.
Yeah, you're dancing, and you have just these cathartic moments in songs, bands are playing, or even. I'm thinking so from the point of view of the audience, definitely the musician is doing a whole bunch of shaking. Whole lot of shaking going on. But the audience emulates that, and
yeah, nice Elvis. Yeah, right.
and they can have these hugely cathartic moments, and just to even use the example of Elvis, what were the audience people?
I was just gonna say boy bands, right? Just all kinds of shaking.
So I think that it definitely happens. However, maybe we could join team.
That's kind of existing.
I know.
It's mostly fun.
And put in a group performing arts.
Yeah.
Because,
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Because comedy, music, and then even theater can create those cathartic moments. You can have those points many times in theater or film where you just start crying or laughing or doing whatever kind of emotional expression in response.
That's a good question. The difference in laughing and crying. Still shaking. Is it just because you have to go like this?
Yeah.
Like, and all this is so lowered and straightened down, and then laughing is like this is all pulled way up from like this part of the core posture is also pulled up. Maybe.
I think that is definitely on the right track. I haven't completely mapped the differences, but that is the first thing that I thought about. Yeah. We could try to map it just a little bit, because I think you're totally right. I mean, the smile is up, and the chest is up, and then really.
Now I'm trying to cry. That sucks.
I know. But when I do cry, the throat is tighter. The chest is tighter for me. It's.
Oh, man.
I know. It's. It is. It seems like it's. Everything is more contracted in general.
Yeah, much more extreme contraction. Like it's pulling itself in instead of oscillating.
I feel much more contraction in between all the ribs. More contraction. Yeah, in the abdominals. When I get
seems kind of hold down, like a little bit longer. Hold down the exhale portion, and then that suspension. And then it's like just that the diaphragm seems to be like the range of motion seems to be like, no.
I love doing this because it's funny. I'm very much moving into that posture, and the thoughts that I think change.
Yeah, right.
Because of moving into this pose. Yes, I think also what leads up to crying is often no upon no upon no. Like no. I mean, and that clamping down of the core musculature to that point stops the breath, which then I imagine triggers hormones to start releasing to animate the movement.
Yeah.
And so that those muscles don't develop a ton of tension or seize on themselves. So it's begin to flood hormones, warmth. Warmth can loosen things up. So it gets hot. There's flood, and so the whole body gets more feverish. I think when the
Yeah.
when the eyeballs get hot, that's when they start to tear, to cool off. I think.
It's kind of like, look at that, it'll be okay. I would start calling tears eyeball sweat. That's awesome.
Eyeball sweat. Yeah.
But it's something because your tear ducts here, and there's like a pressure like in your tear ducts.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just always like, I'm holding liquids, you know, and they're like, there's got to be like a, I don't know how they work. I'm not in the duct system.
I'm not in the duct
But I think
club.
it's squeezy. I think it's like I don't have the duct club. It's almost like the yacht club. I know. There's some kind of squeezy thing happening. But yeah, it's like because it's stingy and it's trying to whatever it is, saline. What is it? This shit on your eyes? Because it's all stingy and it's just trying to soothe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so you tear up when you have allergies.
Yeah.
Also.
Ouch.
So it
Yeah.
cleanses. I imagine there's inflammation that's happening.
Yeah, itchy, burning eyes.
Yeah.
You're totally right. It's not sweating necessarily.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
Cooling
just so
them down.
cool.
Yeah.
But it's soothing, right? I mean, it's in the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's more probably right. It's more of an inflammation response.
Do you have itchy, buttery eyes? Then get clear eyes. Oh yeah, I gotta laugh because I was getting really sad. Like for a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, your art is better than my art. Our arts are actually just performance. Ours are just performance. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like performance arts. That's a good transition because performance art takes a lot more time to coordinate. If you're collaborating, it takes more time to coordinate. With an audience, I think there's a lot more preparation that has to happen to create an environment. I might go back on what I'm saying. I'm trying to compare the visual arts to the performing arts.
Put in with the visual arts when you're thinking about that. Let's put in because it might be beneficial to think about a singular art that does performance and then not, right? So consider, if you will, oh my god, terrible phrase. Strike that from the record. But hey, let's think about, what do you think? Let's think about like slam poetry versus page poetry.
Oh, it's page poetry.
Page poetry is the shit I write.
Okay.
And it's like, you're supposed to want to perform poetry because it's very oral. It's supposed to be, a lot of people, so writing usually, like prose, so fiction and nonfiction, it's usually like you get your book off your shelf, you find your comfy chair, and then you sit and you freaking read, and it's silent, and it's just you and the book, and oh god, and this happens to women with like trashy romance novels all the time. They hunt them in their blankets and go loins for half an hour. But so the difference being, page poetry. So you get So let me give you an idea here. I don't have any of my poems with me, but like part of the thing about poetry, and I'll do that for you for a second too. Is that you have like your title, right? Blah blah blah, and then part of page poetry, because after however long, it becomes this visual experience.
Okay.
And not only is it like this visual experience based on the length of the line, and oh my god, look at this big white space, and then it like stands a break, whatever. So you have this, and it looks like that, but this high quality, whatever. So I'm just trying to describe it. So we've got these lineations and the length of the line, and it might be end stopped or not. And the thing with page poetry is you can sit and go over those lines again and again and again and again before you move forward. You have the control that way. And usually page poetry is hugely complex based on whatever world lives within that one little line. And it might be in jam to go right into the next line, but there's that little bitty reality that's just that one little line. And you have all day and your entire lifetime to get through one stanza, however fast you want to do it, right? And you bring to your knowledge, you know what I mean, like whatever kind of history you have in poetry, you'll bring your own knowledge of how to enjam. How long is a break, like how long is a pause for a comma? How long is a pause for a dash? How long is a pause that doesn't have any kind of end stop thing before I get to this next word? How quickly do I read these words next to each other? So you have a lot of control over that. The performance poet doesn't get to be nearly as complex in the innuendos, in the allusions, in the connectability, in the like blank space, this is really heady. This is like math problem-y, sort of. Page poetry can be like really heady and really abstract. It tends to be really abstract. It tends to be you can be more like successful on a page. I shouldn't say that all poetry is that way, because a lot of it's just like kind of everyday language, but like beautified and whatever, put makeup on it. But page poetry tends to be really abstract. Tends to not like it can really hold those things better. Slam poetry holds sounds and vibrant emotions really well. If page poetry doesn't tend to be very political, and it's kind of what people bring to their expectation of that art. People bring an expectation of like some political, like, you don't tell a woman to dance and she's gonna whatever, you know, like feminista, whatever. So page poetry, like you put all of you tinker and you tinker and you tinker and you put all of your energy. You might spend years on a single poem, and you tinker, and once it's there, it's done, it's out. Once you publish it, then it's out. Same thing with performance poetry. Once I speak this poem to you, it's done, it's out. But you don't get to sit and interpret it for forever. So I have to teach it to you in the way that I speak, right? So that's where you tinker and tinker and tinker, and you don't have complete control over that scenario. In the same way you don't have control over the way that somebody comes to your book of poetry. So the experience between if you're an audience member of a page poet, you know what I mean? You might never meet them. You only know them through what you can read and guess. And if you're a performance poet, like that, I don't even know what's going on, but you're right in there with the audience there, you know, right there. And my poem only exists because you sat there and I spoke it.
I have some thoughts percolating.
Good, because I ran out of thoughts. And I think I confused myself a little bit.
I think applying this to art in society, how art contributes to society. The page poetry, I relate to it in that I like what you're saying, how it's very thoughtful. The environment that a person reads it is quiet, and you can read over and over again and think about it and develop your own thoughts about it. I think when it comes to planning society, planning how people live, I think that is an important component of the planning, this individual reflection and analysis that happens in quiet. And I'll come back to that, but comparing it to the slam poetry, that's more about how people interact with each other. It's human to human interaction in the moment, moving from this experience to this emotional experience to this emotional experience, and having this interaction. And I think that that's important too, because it's planned. The poet has these planned words that they're going to say. They've worked on them for a while, and then the audience becomes engaged with that. And then from that, you start to develop patterns, habits of behavior, which I think is important for society. We are conditioned and learn how to interact with each other. I think there are natural ways that humans want to interact with each other just because we're bodies, and there are ways we interact and needs that we have. But as far as planning society, I think art forms kind of social habits, social conditioning, add an emotional, from the emotional core, from based on the emotions that people feel, and then we construct it into these behaviors. that was like one of the immediate differences I was thinking of between those two. I guess I like both, although, and I'm just kind of spewing out thoughts, but I tend to like, or to prefer, if I were to choose between one or the other. Okay, I'm going to go back on this. Page poetry, I have a hard time with. I have a hard time reading it.
Well, we're doing kind of a higher and lower thing. It's kind of how people view it.
I think
slam poetry is a form. It is a form. You can only have 3 minutes of a poem. I'm sorry, that's it.
And slam poetry, I think, it definitely serves this purpose. I've thought about doing some slam poetry, and I never have, because I think I really do like to get into that that strong, that exercise. I like to express anger. I like to be really invigorated at times, but I also like to be able to move into different emotional states, to say different things, and I feel like the emotional form of slam poetry is a little bit too, it has a little bit too much form, or it doesn't allow me the flexibility that I want, I think, necessarily. It's pretty loud a lot of the time. It's loud, and when it quiets down, often might be pissing off a lot of slam poets. I don't mean to. I'm just trying to analyze. When it quiets down, it's about pain, or it's about, the hard times that one has experienced.
Yeah,
it seems to be a display of suffering. Yeah, a concentrated display of suffering, and I think that's important, but I also think that it can only go so far before it becomes formulaic, and I don't know if this is the right word, but gratuitous, or people, almost competitive. Who suffered the most? Who can display the most angst and,
I was just gonna say angst, yeah.
Yeah, the most angst and difficulty in life.
Well, slam poetry is competitive by nature.
It is, yeah, that's true.
And so you have to gain that, like with comedy, or with, if you get up and you're gonna perform, you have to have some kind of sense of likability. And interesting thing about slam poetry, it seems to me that the largest demographic of cheering fans of slam poetry, they're young. They're young. I don't meet a lot of 50-somethings that go like, dude, like the people, 50-somethings in the slam poetry crowd, and it's partially because of what we've got going on in this city. and the kind of local celebrity that we all like, that we have, the local celebrities that we have. And I want to be like those few people. But I would hazard to guess that when you get to the National Poetry Slam, most of those competitors are within a decade of each other. Like most of them, you know? And so every art has its audience, you know what I mean? And especially today, where there are all these, you cannot have an art and not have it have 16 subgroups right now of different blah blah blah, really niche communities about these fans love these things. And slam poetry is incredibly empowering. You finally figure out that you can say something when you're 16, even though you're a complete idiot and you don't really know anything yet, but you feel like you might know something, and that's an important stage in art, to feel like I'm supposed to have something to say. And not to say that anybody doing, you know, slam poetry after that, I'm pissing off a whole bunch of people, like, and everybody in the poetry crowd knows me as like a page poet, fucking, they're always like, you literary bitches, you fucking monocle wearing cocksuckers, you know, fuck you guys. And we're always like, you're kind of immature. As an artist, you seem kind of immature to me as an artist. And so there's always this fucking, it sucks. Because I just want to like grab them and shake them and say like, you do not have to do the same rhythm over and over and over again. Try trochaic meter, something. I know you love meter because it's easy to remember, one. And this is like the heart of like poetry. It's oral tradition all the way. Epic, epic poems. This is how we told people how amazing Hercules was. Do you remember Hercules? We wouldn't, if we didn't make it, like, if nobody would remember 50 pages of Hercules, whatever, it's Beowulf or whatever, who would, fucking fuck you guys. Kind of, but it's the longest tradition of art that we have. It's before we have written stuff, right? It's the longest like high art thing, right? And then it goes from that into like, we have language now, so let's write everything down, and then that becomes the high art thing, because you confuse a lot of motherfuckers when you're like, I'm gonna give you all these words you've never heard before and slap them into a poem, and then you'll realize how smart I am. You know, that's not what it's about. But yeah, it's like.
My next question actually is, so I really do feel like art is the inception of how people relate to each other, how we behave emotionally, and construct society, an emotional society out of. And so
a very like work, eat, sleep society. Yep.
Work, eat, sleep.
Yeah, I mean, art is like, you need to supplant art into a lifestyle in order to give it more meaning. Do you know what I mean? Because like a lot of people who pursue art outside of their day job, they're super happier, right? And it's a way to facilitate emotions and ideas in ways that you want to learn, ways that you want to engage with people. That's not the sitcoms that tell us what we've already done. It gives us an imagination for extra realities.
And I'm thinking
Sorry,
that,
go ahead.
no, it's good. I appreciate that, because you mentioned that slam poetry, one of your criticisms is that you guys seem immature, right? And my question then was, how do you build a society from slam poetry, or from that art form? What I'm trying to say is that I mean, there are a lot of things that have to happen to build a functional society, to build a society where people are thoughtful, thinking of each other, planning for each other, planning for others' bodies, that you can't exert yourself to exhaustion and have
and still help that guy over there. Yeah.
Or still take care of yourself, or still be healthy, basically. So I think it's important to know how to move into that, this is fucked up, this should be wrong, break this down, but then where do you go from there? How do you rebuild? What's the emotional um, requirements for creating something after you've broken down the structure that doesn't work. Then you have to create something new. You have to imagine something new.
Right, and this is the kind of thing that's interesting because we think as artists that you have to learn the rules before you can break them, right? So you have to learn kind of the classical things before you can just stand over a canvas and start pouring. So we consider in art that you have to learn the higher art forms before you can bring lower art forms up to the whatever. And so there's huge potential, especially contemporaneously, right, politically, because there's just so much going on right now. There's so much. Well, I feel like humanity's on a tipping point. It's like there's something about whatever the population is, and then something about how connected we are without actually being connected at all. We're at this like really kind of threatening tipping point, and a lot of people, just by habit, have everything to say about what's going wrong. This isn't good, that's not good, this isn't good, this isn't good. But very few people are out going like, all right, let's do A, B, and C, these little small steps. These are steps toward, people don't spend their time imagining a better society, they imagine like, oh, it's gotta be better than this because bump, bump, and bump won't be happening. But if bump, bump, and bump aren't gonna be happening, what did we have to do to prevent bump, bump, and bump? What are the things that, what is the shift in values? It could be this giant shift, whoa, we fell right off the table and now we're on the floor, but the floor is awesome! Whatever. So people like to, a lot of times, in these like small moments in art that are really celebratory, they usually comment on things that have happened in the past. So I'd be incredibly excited to see any art form, performance art, written art, visual art, that helps do the imagining of a society. Because you said planning, and some of it is like teaching, there's like kind of this mentorship that happens in art, teaching younger folks, people that are older but still haven't learned these X, Y, and Z lessons because of wherever they're coming from. Art teaches you how to deal with X, Y, and Z things that happen in your life, and it's kind of like making up for this lack of mentorship out of that giant generational family unit that we used to have, where I can't ask mom what it's like to, what I should do about my baby. You know, you need to go to a doctor for it because now the doctors know, and now your family doesn't know anymore, or you're not in touch with your family, or like, you know what I mean? Like the units that we have are really weird right now with people. Like people units, like you're a single unit, right? I'm like a kind of 2-unit, thing. I'm the the 2-tab Lego. You're the single tab Lego, and then we have like the 4-tab Legos, and then we don't have, you know what I mean? Those Legos aren't touching any other Legos. You're just stepping on them on the floor, and it sucks. Now the floor sucks again. Sorry, that was like a huge thing, but I think it's important for art to try to recognize that we should talk about. Now it seems like I'm getting political, but I think the new thing that we could do in art is stop analyzing what's already happened to us.
I had a friend, I recently had a conversation with a friend who's involved in the arts in Seattle, and I was talking
about... Is this a
about...
person? No.
No. She's a burlesque dancer and, yes.
Have I met?
An organizer. Jessie Bell Jones is her stage name.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
Sounds like a well.
She's great. I was talking to her about the different kinds of methodologies, the techniques that I've put together in order to do body philosophy.
Yeah.
And I've described it as interdisciplinary, and she said, I don't think you're interdisciplinary, I think you're post-disciplinary, which I thought was really interesting, and I asked her to define that, what that means, and
Did she just say, no, I run away?
She did explain it, but I'm going to explain it how I think of it, and I don't know if this is exactly how she explained it. But for me, what I liked about that, what I've taken away from it, is that I have learned, I've taken wisdom And I've learned technique from several different disciplines: meditation, opera singing, that huge discipline, understanding anatomy, massage. I've taken what I've needed, but then when I apply them in this new way, I'm not referencing the tradition. I'm not checking myself with the form that the history. I'm not checking myself with the history. I'm not within any of the institutions. I'm not in any of those institutions. I'm not a part of any of those institutions. I'm not an opera singer. I'm not a.
Oh, okay.
Right. I can sing. It's funny because I do choose my words. Sometimes I'll just say I'm an opera singer, but for me, I almost feel like that is an incorrect statement, because when I think of opera singer, I think of somebody who has the resume, has the repertoire list, has sung operas. I've never sung, a solo role in an opera before. Somebody who lives the lifestyle, who travels, who does church gigs, who teaches, who does all of these things that are part of that lifestyle, and I just don't do it. What I fell in love with was the technique. And it's the same kind of thing with meditation. I did a Buddhist meditation training. I don't think of myself as Buddhist. I've taken those techniques and I've created something new from it, and I don't reference any of a lot of the things that are associated with those art forms, because I'm not interested anymore. I don't have the time, and they're just irrelevant to what I'm trying to do at this point. So I really liked that distinction, because interdisciplinary almost feels like I owe it to those.
To high five it every once in a while. Yeah, bam!
I think that's exactly the way to put it. Yeah, to high five it, and I think
meditation.
I think we're at the point where we need new ideas. We need to move on. I mean, there's just so much out there to know. We got to figure out a new way to put them together. Have to organize new ways to put them together. Have to be in a quiet space for a little while to figure out, okay, this is how this works, this is how this works. I'm imagining something that is very different than what is happening outside of this room right now. And then figure out a way to communicate that new way of thinking, so that people then begin to imagine how to incorporate that, or even just create something new, a new way of moving, a new way of feeling, a new way of interacting with each other in the world that is very different than what exists.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you say, is there potential, and I have an answer for this, but I want to hear what you say first. Is there potential for humanity to consider itself in some degree, and just after clean slate, is there an opportunity for that? Does that opportunity exist at all for humanity?
A clean slate,
everything we thought about what behavior is, what humanity is, what living is, what, if we had to relearn being human, whatever. If we couldn't go and then rid of all whatever, and then we're all just fucking standing around. All we're doing is standing around with standing around. And there's stuff around us, whatever that stuff is. And we don't know about all the stuff. We don't know how to interact with each other. Could that even exist? Some kind of supernatural, super scientific smash that gets rid of all your memories of how to cordially, walk past somebody on the sidewalk. Hey, what if we had to relearn all that shit?
I think that it does start with thinking. I think it starts with.
Can we ever clean the slate totally, or are we going to always trickle things in from the past?
Well, I think that what exists in society feeds a way of thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that it's possible to change it. I think that you can start with, I think that's what's beautiful about art, is that you can put everybody in a dark room where there's no stimulation except for what is presented to you. And then, you know, once people get a real strong sense of this new way of thinking, of interpreting life, then, and it's strengthened. I mean, it's an exercise. Put people in this room for an hour and a half. We're going to exercise in this different way, exercise thinking in a very different way. Let's say those people, they come back every week for this new exercise, and then they start to get stronger in it. And then when they step out of the theater and look at the space around them, they're like, I don't want that. I want this that I remember. And then they start to construct it in a different way. I think that is more of the path to creating something new. Clean slate, that reminds me of like apocalyptic. Let's just atom bomb LA or something like that, and just start from the rubble. That kind of. I
can't believe I didn't think of that yet.
Yeah, that seems to be a huge fantasy that's going on everywhere in art. Big blockbuster things. That's the aliens are going to flatten everything. You know, the war is going to flatten everything. The mind is going to figure out technology and just and then flatten everything. It's a huge fantasy, but I don't think it's very practical.
Yeah.
I think that this, what I propose is much more practical. I think that's just the way that it's going to happen. I want to add one more thing though, and that is I really I think as I imagine a different world, one thing that I do retain is our ability to communicate to each other across the world. This ability to have conversation with other people across the world. I think that that's important. And that might change. But at this point right now, I really do appreciate that ability that we've developed, that humans have developed. So I say that because, so that's me saying thumbs up for this kind of technology. That said, I personally want to see a lot of industry go away, change, so that people live much more minimalistically. We don't have these ridiculous and these extreme relationships with materials instead of relationships with people and nature. I would like to see much more interaction with nature, with much more emotional relationship with urban environment, much more intimate relationship between people and caring for people.
Yeah, hippie.
Yeah. I'm not anymore though. I used to be. I tried it.
Super duper hippie?
Yeah, I tried it, but I definitely don't identify with that. I'm much more I mean, I get angry. It's just that kind of one love thing. It just doesn't fucking work.
Yes! Oh, there it was! Oh, very true. Like,
oh my
yeah,
God.
there it is. I like it. Okay, good.
Anyway, yeah. Yeah. A much bigger relationship with death. I mean, hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different this could be a whole nother conversation topic, but having a very realistic emotional relationship with death and planning for the decay and death of people.
Yeah, we're essentially organic matter.
You gotta plan for that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even garbage anymore. Like, go for packaging. Let's package a package within some more packaging, and then package that, and then ship it into a shipping thing, and then we can package that shipping thing, and then you have like 70 layers of shit to take off your crayons. Jesus Christ. Just put a box. This is why bulk food is so awesome to me. It's fucking, it's not the packaging anymore, it's like physically our bodies. It's gonna just be floating and creating a giant, like, garbage floating organic matter island of human. Suddenly we're gonna have to, like, mandatorily cremate everybody, and people are gonna be super pissed off. Why don't you just, like, you're just already trying to push grandma into hell? What the hell? Don't burn her, she's going to heaven, man. Yeah, it's totally, sorry. Wow. I have a lot of shit to say about death.
I know, we should just make that the next topic because...
Just die already, that's what I have to say about it. Just die!
I really want to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, because I started...
I know.
I came to you like, Bill Burr already wrote this joke, I'm so depressed. And he says it now, it's like in every single one of his specials he talks about.
Who?
Fucking Bill Burr.
Oh.
Like, and he's always just like, more people need to be dying. Get it down to 30,000 people, everybody can go to the Super Bowl. It's like one of those, it's a couple of specials ago. But yeah, art can do some more work imagining what life should be. And then we can't sit here and argue about what's high art and what's low art. It's just basically, do you reach the full potential of what your art has given you? Do you push inside your art and try to figure out what it teaches and what it can teach? And like if you take your art seriously, and like do it, slam poets, do it, embrace it. And I always thought I'd be so fucking badass as a slam poet because I'm so fucking loud, I have so many emotions, I shout them out at everybody all the time. Like, I think I can really kill it, but I just, I've got different arts that are vying for my attention, I guess. So I've always been really interested in it. It's always been very attractive to me. It's like just such a passionate thing, and it's just so performative. It's so crystalline, and so concentrated. And so, like, there's my shout out for you fuckers. But like I super do, like, I think, like, if you're not pursuing the potential of your art, if you're just trying to be good at your art, it's not good enough to try to get to the biggest skill level of your art. You should push your identity through your art and come up with this new thing. You don't have to come up with, I don't know what's going to be avant-garde anymore, but you should push yourself through your art the same way that you have. And that's why I'm so impressed by you, because you pushed yourself through opera into something that's your identity now. You know, if you're post-disciplinary, these are parts of your identity. You don't have to go reference the anatomy of the inner core musculature anymore. It's part of your identity and how these arts have come together, and pushing the boundary of an art to its fullest potential to discover like a new way of life, or a new way of coming to terms with life and where life is headed.
I like it. So I like talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks! I don't know why you're dinosauring at me now. Like, thanks.
So, that's good.
Final comments?
Final comments? A lot more to say.
It's so true.
Thanks for watching.
Alright, peace out, yo.
Bye.